Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, John Pearce, the CEO at Made in Britain. Welcome to the show, John. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, very well.
Good. So during this series of podcasts, I've interviewed a few of the trade associations and numerous professionals from different sort of facets of UK manufacturing from a sort of service industry perspective. So the Made in Britain logo, which we can see in the background if people are watching on YouTube, where's the future of British manufacturing heading, John?
Well, according to Made in Britain members, it's heading in the right direction, I would say. We channel an awful lot of enthusiasm about the group. There are currently more than 1,900 manufacturers on our database. They all use the mark. Obviously, that's what they joined Made in Britain for.
Yeah.
But they do share with us an awful lot of information about themselves. And I think that that news and updates about what they're doing, what they're achieving, I think that at the moment, despite everything that's gone on this year and in previous years, recent years, we've had a lot of geopolitical and economic turmoil. But I would say, looking at what's happened this year and including our growth in membership, that the future of British manufacturing looks really good. I think there's a lot of positive signs out there, despite all of the negativity that you might see in some other sectors.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old-fashioned mainstream media doesn't always help the cause, does it? So in terms of the sort of current mood, you sort of mentioned the sort of levels of optimism within the membership. I guess tenacity has been a sort of strength or value that everybody's needed to embrace over the last couple of years, manufacturing in particular. So what sort of things are your members, mainly having hope for? Because there's still a lot of challenges, still a lot of headwinds, currency, supply chain, although it's getting a bit better, it's still not where it needs to be. So what particular areas are your members more positive about than others?
I think the very act of joining a group like Made in Britain, so many manufacturers all in the same place under 50 different product sectors. Half of our members are what I would call trade or industrial manufacturers, but the rest are making sort of retail products, things that you would find in a department store. And this fusion of manufacturing content, if you like, is the place where we see almost the interactions and the ecology of the future of British manufacturing. And tenacity is definitely in the list of descriptions that I'd give the group. But I think it's much more than that, actually. I don't think it's just grit and determination, and that certainly won't be enough to see us through the next few years, according to the economic predictions. I think it's about proper business practice, actually responsible business practice, incredibly detailed business planning. Manufacturers have this unique challenge in that they've got to be around for a long time, because making things and getting equipment brought in from other countries to make your product, or getting raw materials in from other countries to make your product, even if you're making them in this country, you're reliant on long-term accurate planning of what you're doing and making sure that at the end of the day all of that actually turns into a profit. We are a place that's bringing together, profitable, successful, long-termist manufacturers. Some of them have only been going for a few years, but they want to be in that group of a sort of positive future for manufacturing, because let's face it, we can't really solve any of the problems that we've got without things. We need things. There are things that we need and things that we want, obviously, in life, and I think that's something I would say about the group, is that they are focused on making things better for everyone.
Yeah. And I get the sense of, there's a strong feeling of collaboration and probably sharing of best practice and, what works for some of the members? Do they get together and have these sort of forums or meetings where they're sort of sharing ideas and well, sharing challenges as well?
We try to bring them together as much as possible. That has to be mainly online, and certainly, during the pandemic lockdown periods, we found our members were attending pretty much anything that we offered for them, just for the chance to speak to somebody else who's in the manufacturing and marketing world. And we've found that the group are naturally collaborative. I think manufacturers are collaborators. I think they have to surround themselves with collaborative businesses for supply chain and for sales, obviously, but also for what we focus on at Made in Britain is really about the message of your business. So how can a manufacturer, any manufacturer making anything, how can they turn the sort of goodwill of being a British manufacturer using this identity system? How can they turn that into a positive message about their business and about the responsibility of their business and their responsibility to make a product that is viable and saleable and profitable?
Yeah.
And the interactions that we see online are obviously important, but I think it's the interaction with our database actually that is perhaps more important for our members, because they're able to see every other business in the group that is making something, including by searching by materials, which is very often what they need to know. Who is handling the materials that I need to make my thing. I'm making a copper kettle. Who else in the UK is using copper, for example? And there might be industrial or trade or some that are in both areas. But if they've got that focus around the understanding of the importance of materials, and they've got all of that information in the database, of course, they can just search under the business or the product itself or the material. They can even look at the news channel and see who's talking about copper, for example. So yeah, we do thrive on the interactions between our members, and we're very proud of how interactive they're becoming. It is a new group. Made in Britain is a new group of manufacturers, and they've never been put together like this under a license mark in this way. And that independence and the sort of security of a shared network, everyone knows what each other are doing, and they're all equally passionate about it.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And I guess, I mean, one of the things that sprung to my mind while you were describing that then was, around the materials and the members looking for other businesses that are using the same materials. Do you have such a thing as a sort of Made in Britain buyers group, for example, or do you think that would be something that would work? I know certain industries will have a collective sort of purchasing group. I know the building materials industry have these channels where they have buying groups for different merchants and things, and I don't know whether that would that come into play and work with manufacturing. I guess your members are maybe not using the huge volumes that some larger companies might, but if there was a collective, could that be a thing? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud whilst we're live.
Yeah, well, it's something we could look at in the future. I mean, to be really frank about it, we don't need one because the group of Made in Britain is already a buying group. We know that our members are joining to buy and sell to each other. And remember, with half of them making retail products, sometimes they're actually pitching their retail products. We've got members making soap and cosmetics and lots of everyday things that have got fabulous brand stories. They might not be necessarily the longevity that we see in the trade sector with our average membership duration is typically sort of 30, 40 or even 50 years, depending on where part of our membership you look at. So, these are businesses that have been around a long time and have got a plan for the next 50 years. But then the newer ones, of course, they're coming into this to also to sell their products and to sort of normalize their manufacturing world within the trade sector, because very often the trade manufacturers, they might have been around for 50 years, but nobody's heard of who they are. We do focus with our members on procurement, but the way that we do it is by approaching NHS procurement or the MOD procurement systems that are out there, and we invite them to speak to our members in groups to inform them really of how to improve their chances of success in procurement. It is really tough, when you're an SME, and most of our members, 90% of our members are sort of categorically SME businesses turning over 30 million or less. And so, those businesses do sometimes struggle to break through in the world of tier 1, 2, and 3 procurement for big items in automotive and aerospace. But what we aim to do is to invite speakers in to speak to our members, to actually tell them, look, this is how you can perhaps collaborate with other businesses, get onto working groups that work together so that you can be on a list of procurement businesses.
Yeah.
How can you improve your chances of success in this, this big, scary world of government and local authority procurement, but also demystify it, because there are lots of very positive news stories about what the government, how much they spend every year and how much they have to spend on everyday things, not just the things that you'd never hear of. And I think the procurement exercise at Made in Britain is an important one, but it is also about sort of explaining to our members that it is possible to sell into government or a local authority or even to a big buying group, but you have to learn from others how best to do that, and learn what the hurdles are, because there are plenty of them, but they're not insurmountable hurdles.
Yeah, absolutely. Strength in numbers, I think, is the underlying factor there. So we spoke about the mark, the Made in Britain mark. What is it that makes it so important for perhaps other British manufacturers to promote themselves through an organisation like Made in Britain? Because you have a great membership, it's growing all the time. There are countless other manufacturers out there, small businesses that maybe aren't part of Made in Britain. They might be part of a specific sector trade association, and there are lots of technical trade associations out there for different manufacturing processes. But in terms of the collective, the Made in Britain, what would be the number one I guess benefit or selling point for a business that was sort of considering, this maybe sounds like a good thing. What's in it for me? What's going to tip them over the scales and get them into the fold? I think it's a great thing.
I think it's about trust, Jeff. I think it's about trust. We know there's a trust deficit out there. We know that the general public and buyers and specifiers and manufacturers and all the other business sectors, we know that there's a lot of studies around what people trust and who they can trust, and where are we looking for that trust in life. And one of the many interesting aspects of Made in Britain is how we've seen that there's an opportunity there to try and build some trust in the group of a collective mark. We have a code of conduct for members, so every member that comes in has to agree to our code of conduct. It's very simply around promoting responsible manufacturing businesses and promoting them in a way that is completely transparent. So we want people to look at the mark and to trust what it says about the group, but also to trust that there is traceability on the product that they've seen that mark on, and that they can phone up that company and speak to a responsible party and say, look, I need a replacement part, or this isn't the color that I thought it would be. This is a different relationship with the end product, but it's also using transparency as a golden rule, really, to say, well, look, if a company is prepared to be completely transparent about what they're doing, about where they are, who they're employing, everything that they're doing on a factory floor is potentially risky and has to be done properly. These companies have to stick to really strict guidelines around risk and health and safety. And then there's the regional and local and national social responsibility that they have to employ people properly, doing something meaningful with their lives. This is a long list of items that you could say about the manufacturing sector that is using the Made in Britain mark and putting themselves into our database, that is available for absolutely anyone to see any of the detail. And if we discover that somebody's not sticking to those rules of transparency and responsibility, we do have the position where we can switch them off.
Yes.
We remove them from the database permanently or temporarily. But it is a trust relationship that we want with the members, and we want the general public, of course, to trust the mark.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic explanation, and I guess trust is something that we all yearn for in in business, in outside of the work environment. So that value in itself is just so fundamental, and it underpins everything else that you do and that you're involved in. So that's absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about exports, John. You support Made in Britain members with their export business. I think it's fair to say that a product made in Britain has always carried a certain amount of weight in international markets because of the quality of British made goods and products. Our manufacturing and engineering prowess stretches back centuries now, doesn't it? So just how significant has Brexit been to your members in terms of the challenges, and what sort of global opportunities are you seeing for British made products at the moment?
Well, I suppose you could say you can never take your reputation for granted. I mean, we know the studies. I was involved and saw some of the studies around Britain's reputation abroad a long time ago, 10 years ago, when the Great Campaign was out there, and we were studying and looking at how other countries perceived us, and the measures were off the scale positive. I'm sure the measures of care and concern and interest in Britain are still off the scale, but maybe our reputation in other aspects of our international relations with other countries isn't the same. But I think again, it's something that you can't take for granted. I mean, our members are simply 7 out of 10 of our members are telling us they're exporting already. These aren't businesses that need persuading to export. They're already doing it. Some of them are exporting to 50, 60, 70 countries. Wow. So we know that people or businesses that make something you can put in a box and send overseas, we know that they're making 70% of our members are making something that is viable as an export product. And that means they're important to the British economy to try and address the trade balance. Now, what we like to do to help our members is to work hand in hand, actually, with the Department for International Trade. They have a network of dozens of international representatives that will go into a business. They can help you to set up your export plan, to iron out any of the details. And of course, the Department of Trade also have an enormous network of people that are working overseas in British consulates and embassies that are focused quite heavily on trade between the two countries. And we're finding that the more we speak to DIT about these representatives, can speak to our members and help them out when they need it, the more they're telling us about what they can do. And we're finding that relationship is working really well for us. We'll continue to build on it. We have an export program for our members because we know it's something they care about. And we hope to see that number growing and growing, and I expect it to really. We do have an opportunity to increase the amount of exporting we're doing. With a pound, I know the pound being cheaper overseas is not the absolute answer to everything, because obviously it makes the imported raw materials that you need more expensive. But in the balance of things, sending products overseas that last a long time are almost, dare I say, product ambassadors for this country. And if they're of high quality and they're going to a place that desperately needs them for whatever reason, then I think that's got to be good for perhaps reconstructing a new reputation for the country as we go forward. Absolutely.
Well, I'm impressed by the fact that 70% of your members are already exporting. I mean, that's a significant percentage of the membership, given the amount of businesses that are members of Made in Britain. That's really encouraging to hear. I hear of quite often the sort of challenges around exporting, and some businesses that haven't exported to date have got sort of fears, and it's so difficult, and with Brexit it's even worse. And but there are hundreds and thousands of opportunities around the globe for UK businesses. So I guess your collective membership is hopefully a bit of a shining light for other parts of UK manufacturing that are purely focused on local a local customer base. And it's great to get that British reputation for quality and range of products around the globe again. So that's really That's really a high point of my day already. Even just hearing that, I think that's fantastic. So maybe there's a lot to learn from the Made in Britain members around exports. So keen to learn more about that over the coming weeks and months. So sustainability, net zero, key challenges for UK manufacturing. I know that Made in Britain has the Green Growth Programme. Could you share some of the details of what's involved in that, and how's that been received by your members, John?
As if there weren't enough challenges this year, we also have the challenge of climate change and biodiversity loss,
yes.
And resource scarcity. I mean, this is a passion project of mine personally, but it's also the passion project of our board of directors and many of the people that are working with manufacturers, because, as I say, manufacturers have uniquely that resource scarcity challenge. It's almost an existential threat to a manufacturer. You need materials to make stuff, and if you want to run a business that's making things, you need materials. The materials are the non-grown materials, so the things that we're not growing, the plant-based materials, obviously those are they're not all manufacturing relies on that kind of raw material. So on this for all of our members, and it affects everything they do. We have set up a universal system for an assessment of our members. Let's call it their sustainability checklist. It's a simple system that they can go through. It's around the 7 pillars of sustainability for manufacturers. We're influenced heavily by the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is around responsible consumption and production. And we put together a system that offers members a snapshot, really, of how they're doing, where are they on their sustainability journey to net zero. It's important that manufacturers realize that it's not all bad news. Lots of our manufacturers, when they do the assessment, they realize they're actually doing really well, especially on topics like circularity and circularity of materials. We've been astonished by how well our members are already doing on net zero waste, for example. Less landfill, less waste materials, extracting more value out of the materials that you use, reuse of materials to a neighboring business. These are all activities and actions that are taking place already. What we wanted to give our members an opportunity to talk about the things they're doing, but also to see some of the gaps that do exist. Renewable energy is definitely a gap. On interaction with businesses outside of the manufacturing circle, that's also a bit of a gap. But when we looked at, for example, there's a simple evaluation for our members on local and regional social relevance and responsibility. Our scores for all of our members, big and small, off the scale, 80, 90% scores. In their social responsibility, this is doing the simple stuff like employing people that live near to where they work, so they're not traveling very far to work. Sponsoring a local football team. I mean, these are the simple actions that manufacturers are doing, and they do, as I've said a few times, they have a sort of national, regional, and local responsibility, and as we've just been discussing, they have an international responsibility as well. So I think that's part of the reason why they are like they are. But we wanted to give them in the Green Growth Programme something that they can sort of formulate their messages around how well they're doing. But they can. We also signpost them towards the free and affordable advice that they can get around, as I say, renewable energy and some of the harder to address problems of sustainability. And many of our members have told us that this isn't a choice, this is a commercial imperative, and we want to support them in that journey.
Brilliant. So lots going on. I mean, we've got COP27 coming up, net zero, sustainability. It's just out there. It's everybody's talking about it at the moment. Many would say a lot more needs to be done. I think that's a fair comment, but it's good to hear that your members are, already, quite a long way along that sort of journey, and they're already doing things that would, put them in a better position in terms of their, commitments to sustainability and the circular economy. I think it's
very savvy. Those manufacturers are very savvy. Everyone, they know what they're doing.
They do.
They know what they're doing, including on zero waste. We've had some wonderful stories from our members shared from members big and small. How they're making sure that not a single penny of value goes off their premises. It's all kept on board, and that's great to hear. That gives us a bit of chink of light in what has been quite a dark year, really.
Yeah, I guess it sort of ties in with the overall continuous improvements methodologies that have been around for years now, and sort of sustainability. It's not just about improving processes and improving profits. This is one area that is it probably makes up a key part of continuous improvement activities in this sort of era at the moment. So it's really interesting how organizations are sort of sharing the wins that they're having, and I guess when all this sort of started being talked about, and manufacturing businesses, a few years ago had to start adapting, it probably was a bit of a, oh my goodness, this is like a mountain to climb. But actually, as time goes by a little bit and more people get involved, and you see the successes that other businesses are having, you can then try and mirror that in your own organization. And it's just taking those daily and weekly learns and seeing what you can do next. So that's really great to hear.
And learning from the staff. I mean, we've had some wonderful feedback from our members that have spoken to their staff first. It's often the staff and the workers and the contributors, the stakeholders that are in a business. They're often the ones that come up with the quick, fast, easy wins, the little change in actions of what happens on the shop floor or in the offices or outside the premises, where efficiencies can be made, when waste is reduced, and where the overall impact is fast. Where can you get those quick environmental wins that make a difference, but also make a difference to the lives of the people that are working for you? This is key in all of this. And manufacturers are big employers as well. A lot of our members our average is again is in the 30s. Whereas SMEs tends to be a sort of less than 10 employees. Our average is very high at Made in Britain. So there are more people, and there's more people and human relevance to a manufacturer's environment at work. And I think that's where you get that shared knowledge. You put people together and get them thinking about the challenges that we've got, both the resource scarcity and the sort of social challenges that we have right now. And the answers will emerge as long as you ask enough people and get them thinking together properly.
Absolutely. It's all about the collaboration, as always. So what are your members asking you for the most in terms of support? I know you provide a range of services for your members, but what are they what are they asking for the most?
Our members, we exist to help our members sell more of what they make. We don't offer them support services as such. They get support from each other. What our members are talking to us about this year, I think it has to be the energy price. I mean, members of Made in Britain are all manufacturers. They all use energy. I remember at the beginning of the year, a member told me that they had a gas account with Gazprom. What on earth do you do when you're buying your gas from under a Russian contract? I mean, these are fundamental and existential challenges for companies that need an awful lot of energy. As for what we do about that, I think our part, if you like, in that is putting members together so that they can, be allowed a voice for manufacturing and try and influence, the government and policy decision makers around, what this transition to a greener environment means, and that means cleaner energy in the future. But maybe we're not a lobbying group. There are lots of groups that do lobby government. But maybe the future for the policy on energy, needs to identify the fact that manufacturers have a much bigger need and use for energy, and that maybe needs to be recognised in some way. I'm not quite sure how it should be recognised, but there are lots of people I know working on that to try and address this, what they call a fair transition to a greener economy, so that we don't leave businesses behind just because they can't afford to make that transition. I think that will probably be one of the biggest takeaways from this year, is how do we get to a cleaner energy future
Yeah.
without businesses actually going out of business completely.
So, Made in Britain, you're in regular communication with the government through BAYS, the DIT, and the Department for Health and Social Care. You've got a seat on the All-Party Parliamentary Manufacturing Group. So, what's your own involvement in that cross-party group then, John? And are there any sort of wins that have been enabled through, it may be for your members or for UK manufacturing in general, but have there been any sort of wins that you can share with us that, maybe have come about through your involvement in that and some of the conversations you've had with your members?
We don't aim for lobbying wins as such. I know there are other organisations that do, and they do it extremely well. Our primary purpose of being on all of those committees and any relationship where manufacturing is the topic, our first and primary purpose is to actually be the voice of the smaller manufacturers. We have a lot of big businesses now in Made in Britain, but it is primarily an SME manufacturing group. And let's face it, their voice in the past has not really been at the table in the way that it is with Made in Britain. And our win, if you like, is to be there and say, look, we've got an open database. Anyone can search our database for materials or people or businesses or locations. We've got members making everything you can imagine right across the country. It's really a matter of getting the voice of Made in Britain members into that environment and as many environments as possible. We're a relatively new organization. We've been celebrating 10 years this year, but that growth that came during the pandemic, we almost doubled in size in the last 3 years. So there is a responsibility really to almost shoehorn the world of Made in Britain into the general public's imagination as well, and to say, look, this is transparent businesses that are demonstrating what they make. They know where they are. We would like them to be heard of in the general across the general public, and for anyone who's got a responsibility for promoting manufacturing to know that it's not just about aerospace and automotive. There are people making tables and chairs and vans and bikes and shoes and dog food and all sorts of other things that are really going to be equally relevant to the future of the economy.
Absolutely. And it's good to know that there's so much, there's quite a broad range of products made in the UK. As you say, a lot of the businesses are, the sort of SME organizations. And I guess, we're all as consumers used to the well-known brands, but there are things around the house and the home and, in our sort of daily lives that, maybe we are missing a trick. Who is making products that most households would need? Who are making these things in the UK? And I guess maybe, as you say, getting that message out there and getting that awareness to the general public, not just the manufacturing community, is really key, because I think, there will be a portion of society that cost is everything. I get that, when you're short of cash, you haven't got, as much disposable income, then there is totally a place for, products that are cheaper. They might be lacking in quality, but there's still a need for that. But I think people that have got the sort of income and UK products, I'm told they're not always more expensive. Sometimes they are, but you're getting better quality usually. But certainly people that have got the choice of where they buy their goods or products for the home, I just think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, I don't generally put a lot of thought when I'm going out shopping. Where I can, if I see a British flag on the label, then of course that's great. I always try and buy British meat and things like that. But outside of food, which is very, very well labelled, and the food industry is doing a great job in that sort of transparency, if you like. But other things, you go into, I don't know. I mean, clothes shops, yeah, they've got labels on and things like that. But there's so many different goods around the home that if we knew there were British alternatives, we might make a beeline to try and buy that, whether it be online or in a store somewhere. It does give the consumer a little bit more choice. So yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that, and I guess there are so many hundreds of thousands of other people in the UK in the same situation that they're just ignorant to just how much stuff is made in the UK.
Well, that's one of the main reasons we're all on one website. So all of the search that goes on for Made in Britain products is in the same place as for Made in Britain members, and the same place for our Green Growth members. All the members that have done the Green Growth assessment are in the same place. What we want to do is trying to put everything in one place, so that if you're interested in tables and you want to know who's making tables in the UK, you can definitely find them on our database. Just type in the word table and you'll find something. And likewise for any materials that you're interested in, who's making what out of what. But you can also search for people. So if you have somebody in your family or friends that is working in manufacturing and you want to see what they do, what they do at work, and the business that they fit into and how that fits into all of British manufacturing. We've also got a news service. There are literally thousands of stories in a completely ring-fenced environment. So you search for somebody working in British manufacturing, you'll find a news story about them, and you can investigate what they're making and the product they're making, where they're selling around the world, all sorts of really positive news stories about the future of British manufacturing, which we are co-constructing every day of the week. Every time our members tell us what they're up to, we try and give that good news some amplification across the media as well, and including on social media, so that people have a better sense of what a greener and cleaner future of manufacturing might be.
Wonderful. I love that. So you've got the Made in Britain Impact Awards. This is something that I've only recently become aware of. So they're on the 1st of December, I understand. There's 7 award categories. I'm just going to read them out for the listeners or anybody watching this when it comes out on YouTube. So we've got Rising Star, Sustainability Team of the Year, Sustainable Initiative of the Year, Sustainable Packaging Project of the Year, Employee Engagement Campaign of the Year, Innovation of the Year, and Leader of the Year. What a great range of awards. So what's the impact of these awards to your members, John? How did the awards come about in the first place? Was this something that was asked for, or have you just decided to do it and it's just picked up pace?
It's about a number of things, but it's mainly about recognition and message. We wanted our members to be able to galvanize their thoughts around what they're actually doing, and to give them themes in which to tell us about that, and to win an award that will give them publicity. I mean, we are a publicity machine in lots of ways. We do give an amplification in the media to our members. If they tell us some really great news, we have PR targets to try and get our members in the news, along with the mark and with the membership group. But the awards specifically are around giving our members it's a moment, if you like, for them to practice the art of messaging about themselves. Very often in life itself, when the story that we tell about ourselves is sometimes not very well told. And our members, I think a lot of our members actually come to Made in Britain to learn how to tell a better story about themselves. And we thought an awards focus with this year, a year when it's been really hard to focus on sustainability specifically, we thought, well, let's give the opportunity to amplify some messages about what our members are doing in sustainability in a year when we know everyone has had a tough year for lots of different reasons, especially economically. But this is really about message. It's about giving members the chance to tell us in a few hundred words what are their key messages about what they've achieved this year, and for us to put together some independent judges that will evaluate all of those and give one of them a prize, and there'll be some runners up. And I think everyone walks away happy, knowing that we've helped our members to tell their story a little bit better.
Yeah, Fantastic, and a good point you made actually, and you know, we aren't always great at selling ourselves and telling our own story and shouting about our own successes. So that that whole collective piece around encouraging the members to reflect on what they've done and reflect on all their hard work and energy that they've put into it, all of the staff and the different initiatives that they've put together. I think for everybody to come together at an awards, I believe it's online, isn't it? I think you said.
Yeah, it's online only this year.
Yeah, having that recognition and then having that provides then content for your members and of course Made in Britain as a collective to push that out as a success story. I think it's fantastic. So I'd like to wish everybody who's taking part the best of luck. This is being recorded on the 9th of November, so we've got a few weeks to go. So I guess there'll be some apprehension and nervous excitement around the membership at the moment. So what's next for Made in Britain?
Yeah, we did a strategic review earlier this year, and that looked at all aspects of Made in Britain. Starting obviously with the license to use the Made in Britain mark. It's an official license. We've registered the mark in every product category, including digital products. So we're really passionate about protecting that official status, if you like, because we are a non-profit organisation. But the strategic review was to look at ambition, really, and to think, well, how far can this go? How big is the world of responsible manufacturing in this country? We think there is enormous potential to bring even more voices to this choir of celebration, if you like, of British manufacturing. And our next target is to double the membership in the next 3 years. That won't be easy, but to get from 2,000 to 4,000 in a matter of a few years won't be easy, but we are taking steps to do that strategically. So we're using the resources that we've got to achieve the outcomes that we want for the purpose of getting more and more manufacturers celebrated and with an amplified voice in the economy, especially to government, but also to local authorities and to the general public.
Yeah.
And I think the next few years will be about taking that message of, look, this is the group of businesses that are making everything. We can definitely make things better, but we need you to recognize that we are in this group. We're using the identity of the Made in Britain mark, and that we want to serve you with the products that we're making.
Absolutely. So lots of things to look forward to. As you say, doubling the membership. Yeah, you're going to be able to do that, aren't you? Crikey, with a bit of help. bit of help. I'll look forward to speaking to you again at some point in 2023 and seeing how things have moved forward. I'm sure they will. It's been a really interesting conversation today, John. Thank you very much for coming along and talking to the Insights for Manufacturing audience about Made in Britain. So thank you very much for that. That pretty much wraps up our discussion for today. So I hope the audience have enjoyed the content today. Thanks again to John Pierce. Thank you for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.